Welcome to episode 3 of Unlocking Digital Workplace Opportunities in 2023, wherein we unravel some of the most intriguing themes and topics that have been disrupting the digital workplace industry. In our last episode, we talked about metaverse and the hype around it. And today, I, Tanvi, a senior analyst with the firm, along with Udit, who is a practice director with the firm, we'll be clearing the air around the most talked about topic of 2023, the experience level agreements or the XLAs. So that first things first. We've heard about it, we've talked about it, but there is still a huge gap, and people need to know what exactly XLAs are and what makes them so special. So, what's your take on that?
So XLAs, Tanvi, is something which is very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about it, but it's not about me, but from an enterprise lens, I think XLAs are one of the most powerful tool that they have in their armory for performance management. It sort of provides you that pay for performance, model, and especially more relevant, more apt if you have a huge outsourcing estate and you are having challenges around, performance with your outsourcing service vendor. I think XLAs are a boon here. And the bottom line is most of the enterprises will relate with something like what we call watermelon effect, which essentially means all your SLAs that you have agreed with your service partner are green, but still when you talk to your employees, the experience is not good. When you think about business outcomes, they are nowhere close to even where you envisioned them to be, but your SLAs are still green. So what it ultimately means is if we take a watermelon, on the outside, your SLAs are green, but inside everything is red. Your employee experience is bleeding. It's very poor. So I think this is the underlying problem a lot of the mature enterprises face with. It's very common in all my interactions, but XLAs, I think this is where XLAs hit hard. They can be a boon to solve this particular issue here.
Absolutely, Udit. I think watermelon effect is a very good way to help us understand what XLAs are. Now that we have clarity on XLAs, the next part of the question is that how do we undertake the transformation journey? Because it's easier said than done, right? So how do we take from the concept to the transformation part?
Absolutely. And one mistake that I see a lot of stakeholders make is thinking of XLAs as something, SLAs on steroids. So I'll make my SLAs more stringent and that will give me a sort of an XLA effect. That's untrue. So XLA is definitely easier said than done. If you implement XLAs versus not implementing is sort of getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. But ultimately, it's not about the technology. It's not about the process maturity. If you have a conversation with any mature stakeholder, they will say in any transformation, the biggest challenge is change management. It's not technology, it's not process. The same thing stands true for XLAs also. It's not that implementation is tough, but the overall approach to XLA is very different than what it is for SLAs. And that's why it requires a mindset shift. For example, a typical SLA would be something like, my CSAT score needs to be more than 80%. Now that incentivizes your service partner to achieve 80% and maintain it.
Right.
But XLAs need to be something around, percentage improvement in CSAT. So there's this continuous incentive to move beyond. And it's not something that you contract for 5 years, but something that needs to be very iterative. You keep revisiting your XLA framework and keep making changes accordingly. And that's why it's more of a mindset shift versus a technology or a process-based transformation.
And I totally agree to that. I think it's about continuous improvement in employee experience. So thanks a lot for your inputs with it. This was super intriguing and insightful at the same time, and I'm pretty sure our viewers would find value from it. So thanks a lot.